Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your mental health professional. Hello, once again, family. Back to another episode of the Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast with your girl, Andrea Wise-Brown. But today, family, I have someone to share with you, and she is special. She is special. She's smart. You know what I'm going to do? I'll just go ahead and I am going to, I'll introduce her properly by reading her bio. But family, before I do that, we have some housekeeping that I have to do. So if you are new and you're coming by the podcast, or if you watch or listen to the podcast and have never done so, please click this little bell up here, click this subscribe button, and then click that bell so that you get the notification every time a new episode comes out. All right? Okay, because we are family, and I'm going to be dropping the jewels to help you keep your mind healthy and strong. Okay, so family, here we go. So today on the podcast, we have Dr. Nicole O'Barto-Trainer. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. So what should I call you? Because I want to be respectful.
Oh, please just call me Nicole.
Okay, I love it. Okay, Nicole. All right, Nicole. So here we go. I'm going to read your bio. Okay, so Dr. Nicole holds a doctorate in counseling psychology from West Virginia University with clinical training at Allegheny General Hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, specializing in mind-body therapies for chronic gastrointestinal and somatic disorders. She received additional training from the Allegheny Center for Digestive Health. Since 2009, Dr. Trainer has focused on integrative mental health, boasting advanced skills in mindfulness interventions, HeartMath, biofeedback, and functional approaches to depression and anxiety, encompassing nutrition, micronutrient therapy, and amino acid therapy. Okay, so family, that sounds like some big stuff, right, y'all? That sounds like some big stuff. And a lot of that is, those are big words, but we don't want to lose you. We don't want to lose you because this is going to be good for your mind and your body. And today, that is what we are connecting. We are connecting your mind to your body. So, hey, Nicole, Dr. Nicole, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for showing up. Okay, so I'll just start off by asking this question, but I'm going to preface it with this. So I wrote a book and it's called 6 Pillars to Power Up Your Mind, Make Mental Health a Lifestyle. And in the book, one of my pillars, and I truly believe this, is nutrition. If you want to get your mind healthy and strong, you have to feed it, and you have to feed it well. Feed your mind. Okay. So I have some background on this. However, you have some extensive background. So today you are the expert. Okay? Okay, good. And I'm loving it. And so I want the family to know that we are talking to a mind and body, a nutritional expert. What is the connection between the gut and the brain?
Well, so its formal name is the gut brain axis, right? So it's the axis, the intersection between what is happening in our gut, the integrity and the quality of the health in our gut, and how it influences or permeates the brain barrier, right? So the gut brain axis is kind of like you could think of it as sort of like a wall, right? Like, so the integrity of the gut health is really significant because depending upon the permeability of the gut, that's going to affect kind of that's going to affect influence rather toxins that are allowed to pass through the wall and gain access into the brain. It's going to affect neuromodulation of neurochemicals like serotonin. For example, most people are unaware that 90% of your serotonin receptors are located in your gut. So it's the best example of how, when we say like, well, does the gut have any impact on mental health? Well, most of us are well versed in knowing from the pharmaceutical industry, right, that serotonin is really important for our mental health, right? And so to think that 90% of our serotonin receptors are located in the gut almost immediately suggests that we cannot neglect our gut health and expect that we're going to enjoy sustainable emotional well-being, right? Like that if neuromodulation of serotonin is vital for balanced mood and emotionality, and the bulk of those receptors are located in the gut, so that means the integrity of the gut has to be strong, right? That means we have to have good integrity in that wall. So like good stuff getting through, bad stuff not getting through, for the most simplest way of explaining it.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Okay, so I'm going to try to make it a little more simpler, right? I
Mm-hmm.
love it. Please keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to be over here on this side trying to make it a little more simpler. So are you telling me, Dr. Nicole, that some of the foods that we eat can increase our level of anxiety?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in a couple of ways, but the 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 way that is the most implicated pathway related to nutrition and mental health is inflammation. So
Mm.
if we are eating a lot of pro-inflammatory foods,
Mm-hmm.
we are producing a lot of pro-inflammatory cytokines, and they are wreaking havoc in our entire system, right? And they're
Mm.
absolutely um, playing a role in our gastrointestinal health. They're
Mm-hmm.
playing a role in our nervous system, uh, all functional systems of the body, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
inflammation disrupts all functional systems of the body.
Absolutely.
So when you ask me, are there certain foods that we can eat that can cause us to have more anxiety? Absolutely. At the very
Mm-hmm.
basic level, when we're eating foods that create an inflammatory process in our body, that is going to potentially be one implication for disruptions in emotional well-being, like anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm.
If we are, so many of us are really much more aware now of things like gluten and dairy, and right, like we've in our culture, we're now offering up dairy alternatives and gluten free. There's so much more gluten free in our grocery store, and this is kind of a newer thing, right? Like
Yes.
that
Mm-hmm.
we're paying attention to. And so that's another area where you say, like, are there certain foods that we could eat that it could increase our anxiety? So if we have food sensitivities, um, if we have a food sensitivity, for example, like to gluten, and
Okay.
we're eating a tremendous amount of gluten, the amount of gluten in our system can actually then start to behave in a toxic way,
Mm.
right? So when we talk about um, moving beyond medication or just traditional psychotherapy and taking more of a wellness oriented approach to maintaining and sustaining emotional well-being throughout the lifestyle, we have to understand kind of how our bodies, like our individual body at the individual level, and what is going to uh, be a threat to our emotional well-being. And those are environmental toxins, right, as well as nutrition that's depleted nutritional states, right? So when we talk about the essential micronutrients and trace minerals, um, that we're not as readily getting from our food sources, because our food sources are so stressed out because of the demands on production of food, combined with the integrity of our gut health being compromised in so many situations, because it's having to manage so much inflammation, or it's having to manage so many environmental toxins,
Mm-hmm.
that makes it difficult for it to actually derive the vital micronutrients and trace minerals from the good foods that we are eating in order to be able to operationalize them for the essential functions, the essential biochemical functions for balance, mood, and emotionality.
So let me ask you this. I want to go back to the gluten thing. So I loved it when you started saying, these are the big things that we see now. We go in stores, everything is gluten free, gluten free. So do you know specifically what's the connection between gluten and depression, or gluten and anxiety? And the reason why I'm asking you this, because I did hear you say this is very individualized, and I get that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping, family, that you all get that, because how my body responds, or my mood responds to what nutrients I put in my body, is going to be very different from Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole or someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say this, that I was working with a client, and she'd be doing well for a while, that she believed that she had some gluten. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the only thing that actually creates this shift in her mood to where she's really depressed. And she said that, that it takes some time for it to get out
Mm-hmm.
her system before her
Mm-hmm.
mood shifts. So have you
Yes.
ever heard of that? Or just so me just giving you that story, just wondering, do you have a response to that?
Yeah. Yeah. So if she has a sensitivity to gluten, right? Like if her body has a difficult time breaking down gluten, what happens is, again, if the body responds to it as if it's a threat. So it mounts an inflammatory response, right? So that inflammatory response then causes, right, like a stress response in the body. So now we have secretion of cortisol, the stress hormone, cortisol, into the system, right? And so essentially it throws the system completely offline, right? So it disrupts the successful kind of biochemical processes necessary for maintaining mood and emotionality. And it causes inflammation in the brain and throughout the body, right? When we're talking about depression and disruption in emotional well-being, we're usually talking about like inflammation in the brain.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I can see that. That's what she told me. And I was like, okay, because I know that, yeah, what we eat does and can affect our mood. But
Mhm,
specifically,
mhm.
yeah, she opened me up to that idea, and
Yeah,
yeah, learning more about that. So yeah,
yeah.
so I wanted to ask you about that, the whole gluten free and gluten, and yeah, how that can cause inflammation. I love that. Did you want to say something else? It looks like you wanted to say something.
Well, I think the other piece is that there's so when we're talking about like emotional well-being,
Mm-hmm.
we have to consider like the volume of activity within the hippocampus.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so hippocampus, learning, memory,
Yes.
behavior. Okay.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
it is also falls vulnerable. Hippocampal volume kind of falls vulnerable when inflammation is high. So that's the other
Mm.
piece of this when you're talking about. So again, I talk a lot about how like the role of um, having available to us essential micronutrients, which are
Mm-hmm.
essentially essential vitamins and minerals, along
Okay.
with essential amino acids. Um, to create and maintain serotonin, dopamine, like converting epinephrine to norepinephrine, these
Mm-hmm.
neurochemicals for mood and emotionality. But I think the
Yes.
other piece too is to recognize like the role of other regions of the brain, like the hippocampus, in
Mm-hmm.
learning, memory, and behavior. So if the
Yes.
hippocampus is thrown offline because of a certain amount of inflammation, right,
Mhm.
that's going to affect learning, memory, and behavior.
Got
That's
it.
these are all three of those things, all three of those um attributes of living, I guess you could say, would be, would have implications in depression.
Yeah, no, I get that. And so, I'm loving how you're speaking about um amino acids and nutrients. So, can you tell us, please, what are we supposed to be eating that's going to keep the inflammation down? Hey, family, come on over here because I have something for you. Starting off with a go to guide for keeping your minds healthy and strong. This right here is the Bible to mental health. It's your mental health Bible. The name of it is 6 Pillars to Power Up Your Mind and Make Mental Health a Lifestyle. Everything that you need to know about keeping your minds healthy and strong is in this go to guide. Where you get it from? Well, you get it from awisebrown.com/shop. But in this go-to guide, honey, in this mental health Bible, you know what you're going to find out? You're going to find out the benefits of aromatherapy, and how it can shift your mood. But guess what? You don't have to go anyplace else to look for your aromatherapy because your girls got you, okay? You can get some aromatherapy here. This is aromatherapy is in this candle. This is called a slice of happiness. It makes me tingle, like literally makes me tingle. A slice of happiness. This is a cruelty-free candle with no parabens, no formaldehyde, and no known suspected carcinogenics. Now, you know, you go out here and you find these candles that smell good, but are they good for you? Are they good for your brain? Come on now, get real with yourself. Well, this one smells delicious and it's good for you. Made with essential oils. It's a soy candle. Amazing. Uh, you can burn it or you can just walk by and smell it. Lord have mercy, it's so good. Okay, so that's your candle, your aromatherapy, which raises the dopamine in your brain. That's your natural feel good neurotransmitters in your brain. All right, y'all. And I'm a part of you. You're a part of me. We are a family. We got hoodies now, and these are unisex hoodies, and they wear well, they wash well, and they feel so good. So you can wear them over your clothes, you know what I'm saying, and look dope, or you can wear them as your clothes with nothing under them, which I like to do often. And when you travel everywhere, I mean, every time I wear them, I'm moving around. People are always asking me whether I'm traveling, going to the supermarket. What's that? Who's that? And I'm like, mental health is a lifestyle. Because see, this is on the back. Okay? They come in white and they come in black. I'm like, join the family. Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast. So there you go. Family, don't you ever say that I ain't give you nothing. You get all of these things from awisebrown.com/shop. All right? I got your goods. I got you. You don't have to go anyplace else. I'll see you on the other side. Like I know about, omega 3s, there's certain
Mhm.
things, the Mediterranean diet, the Japanese
Yes.
diet, and all those things I do. And I speak about those. But
Mhm.
yeah, could you please, Nicole, educate us on what should we be eating to keep our moods balanced?
Yeah. So I think, again, the Mediterranean diet is probably one of the most highly researched diets,
Okay.
right? When it comes to reducing inflammation, the relationship between Mediterranean diet and various disruptions in emotional well-being or mental illnesses, the relationship between the Mediterranean diet and chronic disease processes, right? Um, like depression and diabetes. So we know that the Mediterranean diet has a lot of great merits, right? And it's made
Yes.
up of a lot of polyunsaturated fats, right?
Mm.
Omega 3s, so good fats. Good fats is made up of a lot of whole grains, dark leafy greens, leafy greens in general, right? But dark leafy greens tend to be really micronutrient rich, especially in B vitamins. B vitamins are very, very essential for mood and emotionality, energy, right? They're a very important micronutrient. Um, so we're talking about whole foods, right? We're trying to stay away from foods that are processed. So we're talking about foods in their most original states. So fruits, vegetables, um, dark leafy greens, polyunsaturated fatty acids, nuts, seeds, if you can tolerate nuts and seeds, because they're going to be another source of rich amino acids, right? So like pistachio nuts, for example, are like have a complete protein profile, a complete amino acid profile. So it's a really good nut.
Is
So
it
I,
really? Wait, hold on, Nicole. Let me
Mhm.
just ask you this. Okay, so pistachios, because I was gonna say specifically. So what about when I eat cashews? I don't know, they might not be good for me, but
Mhm.
okay, cashews and sunflower seeds.
Mhm.
No? Yeah?
Yeah, I mean seeds and nuts, like so almonds obviously almonds are a big part of the Mediterranean diet.
Mm,
Um and they're often cited the most, but sunflower seeds,
sunflower.
uh yeah, just seeds and nuts. I think the idea is that
Uh-huh.
you're making a shift from a traditional Western diet, which unfortunately is mostly processed foods, right?
Would be donuts and cookies and freaking chips. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
mostly processed foods, right? So
Yes.
again, I say it's process, not perfection, right? Like that's what
Mm,
overwhelms people when they think about nutrition and they think about
mhm,
changing the way that they eat. They feel like these Mediterranean diets, these Whole30 diets, or some of these diets that are well cited to be very beneficial for emotional well-being, feel overwhelming for somebody to take
mm,
on. So I always say like, well, let's just try to move like it's progress, not perfection. So if I
mhm,
know that eating nuts, any kind of nut, probably is
mhm.
going to be better for me than eating something processed, right?
Got it.
Like chips or any of the snacks that are offered most readily up to us, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, and I strive to move in that direction, right? Like, so I strive to reduce red meat, replacing red meat, including a little bit more plant based protein meals intermixed throughout our week, right? So that we're not always relying on animal based proteins for our proteins,
Okay.
including fish. Salmon obviously is a really good source of omega-3
Mhm.
fatty acids. It's cited a lot in the Mediterranean diet. Um, Olive oil, um, again, those darker leafy greens, and just because they're so rich in those vital micronutrients, right? Like that makes them,
Like kale, spinach. Mhm.
yes.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Colorful
Um,
vegetables,
color.
right? So any kind of colorful vegetables. I always put colorful vegetables on the list. Fruits, fruits are really high in sugar. We all know that. So, but whole fruit, as opposed to like a processed fruit bar, for example, is much preferable, right? Because again, there's nothing, the processing is what degrades the quality of the food. The processing is what creates like can kind of wreak havoc within our gastrointestinal system, right? So I think it's just, making shifts to whole foods, just recognizing that foods, they always say shop on the outside of the supermarket, right?
Mhm.
On the outside of the supermarket is where you're going to find the whole foods that do not have any preservatives or not preserved in any way. So they're going to have the most available micronutrients. They're going to have the most, um, you know good fats, right? They're going to be the best foods for us. And then if you as you start to eat more and more from a whole food diet, then you might explore something that's a little bit more of a regimented, diet, like a Mediterranean diet or a Whole30 diet, right? Like there are some diets that,
Yeah,
where
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, Nicole. What's a Whole30 diet?
well, Whole30 diet is it's a derivative of the Mediterranean diet,
Okay.
essentially. Just
Okay.
whole foods. There's just certain things that they take out. The whole food diet. So dairy is not. There's not a lot of dairy in the Mediterranean diet, if any, right?
Mhm.
But it's explicitly kind of taken out of the Whole30 diet, right?
Okay. Okay. So the Whole30 diet just represents, what is it, 30 things, and you can't eat anything out of the 30? I don't know. I've never heard of the Whole30 diet.
Yeah. So it's a it's 30 days they want you to try this diet for,
Oh,
basically,
got it.
right? Like whole food diet for 30 days to
Got
kind
it.
of keep record of like how does it affect how do you feel? Do you feel differently? More energy, better sleep, um,
Uh,
decreased, you know, joint stiffness, right? Like again, kind of common indicators of inflammation in the body.
Okay, no, I like that. Okay, I like that. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
a concept. It's not necessarily a diet, right? It's a
Yeah.
concept to do trying it for 30 days. Oh, I like that. Family, I like that because my thought is to always kind of lean into things and I love your approach, right? Like, not shoving people, this is what you need to do, but it's kind of like, okay, what can I exchange for something else? Like, at
Yes.
least let me just, what can I exchange? And maybe just exchanging it, family, for 30 days just to see how you feel. Because I always talk about that's so interesting. In my book, I write about wise. I have these wise challenges at the end.
Hmm.
And so I kind of give a wise challenge to do it for 2 weeks. But I
Yeah.
get it. There's one out there to try these wise foods for 2 weeks. But there's a diet out there that's saying for 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I love that. I love that. I haven't eaten red meat in um over 25 years, right?
Hmm.
Or pork. Okay.
Hmm.
What was so interesting is this, which is good. I'm fine. I don't yearn it. I don't want it. It's good.
Hmm.
However, I had my child, and when we had our child, she's never had it. So like I did have it, for the first
Hmm.
few years of my life, but she's never had a beef or pork ever. Okay, and so now I was literally watching, there's a Netflix special that just came out. I don't know if you're aware of it. God dog it. I don't know the name of it. I need to get the name. But where there's like it's a stomach that's up
Hmm.
on in the front of it. I don't know if you've seen it. But anywho, they start talking about, the body and how having certain foods in your body makes your stomach stronger, right? So
Hmm.
even if some of those foods aren't as healthy for you, just at least your body experiencing them, it creates these, I guess, microbiomes that are in your stomach that kind of fight off, I guess, other things that come through your body.
When we talk about like the microbiome, right? Like in the gut,
Yes.
we want to have both good and bad bacteria, right? Because we want to be able to we want good bacteria, and then we want bacteria that might be labeled bad bacteria, because we need them to be working together for just the reason that you suggested, right? Like if our gut has never encountered and learned how to manage something that isn't ideal for it, so to speak, right? Then whenever it encounters it, it has a pretty strong inflammatory response, right? It doesn't know what to do with it. So when we talk about having like eclectic gut bacteria, we talk about having kind of a varied bacteria, some that might be labeled good bacteria and some that might be labeled quote unquote bad bacteria. But the presence of those varied bacteria is what makes for strong gut integrity. So that means what the gut encounters an environmental toxin, whether that be a toxin from a substance that we're exposed to, a cleaning product that we have, something in our air, something in our water, something in a food source that we eat, then
Okay.
it can successfully navigate that, and it doesn't compromise the permeability of the gut brain wall, right? Like that wall that's designed to the integrity of that wall is so important, right?
Yes.
Because that's what doesn't allow um, invader bacteria, if you will, to pass through to our blood, to our brain.
Got you. Okay, so Dr. Nicole, how do we make that wall strong? How do we keep it strong? So is it going back to like eating the as I just gave that, eating more healthy, more plant-based, the whole Mediterranean diet? Like, is it going back to that? How do we make that wall strong?
Yeah, so it'd be a combination of like eating whole foods, right? Foods in there, even if they're not, again, showing up on a Mediterranean diet list,
Hmm.
but they're still whole foods. They're not processed.
Okay.
Of trying to minimize the amount of toxins that we're taking in. So again, this is where the conversation goes to like, how important is it that we eat organic foods? Well, it's important that we are mindful of fruits and vegetables that we know are heavily sprayed in order to make it to market, because they are, to a certain degree, can be toxic to our system, right? So there's multiple lists out there on the market, right? Like the Dirty Dozen, or lists that provide us with some education about which fruits and vegetables should we be prioritizing in their organic forms, and which fruits and vegetables can we get away with buying non-organic, right? Because again, we have to keep in mind, like, the economics of all of this, right? Organic foods tend to be
More
more
expensive.
expensive, and they're
Mm-hmm.
not affordable for everybody.
That's
So
right.
being mindful that certain fruits and vegetables bought in the organic form is really valuable investment for our health, and others we can get away with, right? So so again, it comes back to, like, the foods that we're choosing to eat, the toxins that we're exposed to. So just trying to minimize toxic load as much as we can, because that puts a tremendous amount of burden on our gut. Um, oh, I had another thought, but I kind of lost it. Maybe it'll
That's
come back.
okay. It'll come back. It will come back.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And it did come back to me, and I think it's important to mention. So the other piece was, so we talk a lot about fruits and vegetables, of course, right? And we talk a lot about, buying organic fruits and vegetables. But where does our meat come into play? Because many of
Mm,
us do eat meat, right? And so where we ran into problems, and where we've run into problems with integrity of gut health, is when we started using antibiotics, right? Giving our animal protein sources antibiotics, because we were not subjecting them to ideal living conditions. So the demands for food production got higher, right? We needed to had more eggs, more chicken, more beef, right? So those
yes.
demands got higher. The living conditions of the animals became deplorable, which subjected them to diseases. So in order to not lose our vital livestock, we started preventatively giving them antibiotics. So
Mm,
what we know what happened then is, there's those antibiotics that were being injected into our food sources then were becoming a part of our diet, right?
mhm,
And what happens when we use antibiotics is they strip our gut microbiome of all good and bad bacteria, right?
mm,
So it's a stripping source. So why we have so much compromised gastrointestinal health now is really a lot of it is related to, like, the decreased exposure to bacteria, right? So we over sanitize our hands. Right, like, we all got on board with all those little sanitizers hanging off our purse, and we just were not, right. We don't spend as much time in the environment as we used to, right, getting our hands in the dirt and getting exposed to bacteria,
yes.
that's available in nature, that strengthens our gut microbiome, strengthens our immune system. We started eating foods, plant or animal proteins that had been exposed to antibiotics, which then became a part of stripping our gut microbiome. So it's being mindful of our food sources, right? And then it's also recognizing the value of restoring our gut bacteria, right? Through probiotics and prebiotics, right? So probiotics are a big thing now, right? Like, on the market, there's probiotics everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's another piece of it, maintaining that gut integrity, and always um attending to maintaining eclectic gut flora, is just making sure that we are eating foods that are both probiotics and prebiotics, right? Um,
The
Probiotics,
difference. Yeah, go ahead. Tell us
yeah. So
what's
probiotics would be, like, we get a lot of probiotics from foods that have naturally occurring bacteria in them, right? So yogurt is often cited as having bacteria, right? So, like, you see, we're
and they
now.
say, let me just come in. They say
Yeah,
Greek yogurt specifically. Is there a difference? They say Greek yogurt specifically.
yeah. So Greek yogurt has more strands of good bacteria than
Okay.
maybe other cultured yogurts do.
Okay.
Fermented foods often show up on the list. Um,
Like
these
like sauerkraut. I like to give examples for people to know, right?
Yes,
So like
sauerkraut.
sauerkraut, right?
Mm-hmm.
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 Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
it, kombucha drinks, right? Like
Kombucha.
there's a lot of probiotic drinks on the market now that have good bacteria. They're fermented to keep the bacteria in, but those are another uh, probiotic that you can get. Sourdough bread, for example, right?
Oh,
Like there is bacteria in that, and so we would
oh,
never think of that. But if it was, for um, if we're thinking about where do we get from where can we pull from kind of eclectic, because some people maybe just don't like yogurt, right?
right.
So they're
Like
not going to
me.
be
I don't like
ke-
yogurt.
kefir milk, right? Like if you have no dairy sensitivity, kefir milk, or kefir is another probiotic. But these would be examples of foods that you could incorporate into your diet that are
Yes.
going to carry with them good bacteria.
Got
And
it.
then you could take a probiotic supplement, right? Like there's lots of probiotic supplements on the market. And so you want to do your research and find ones that have been shown to survive sort of like that survive sort of the process, right? To actually still be intact when they reach the gastrointestinal system.
Like you were just naming the certain foods, the fermented
Mhm.
foods, right? So I've learned that those are extremely important to incorporate those in your diet. And then what I did hear about the probiotics, because they are expensive. And
Mhm.
so me taking those probiotics, what I learned recently was like they don't last for the long term, and it's like
Mhm.
you have to consistently take them. So
Mhm.
what I was told was, and I don't know if this is true or not, but what I was told was it just makes more sense not to you know to save your money on those and just invest in the foods.
Like the um, probiotics being expensive on the market, and
Right. And
so
not
you
as
could,
effective. And not as effective. So
yeah,
them being expensive and not as effective as actually, you know, um, adding those foods into your diet on a regular basis.
yeah, absolutely. I think that could just be, the default answer when we talk about like supplementing something versus getting it from Whole Foods, right? And there is, uh, you know, it, it's questionable, I guess. I don't think the research is clear yet, but there are a lot of supplements that market themselves to say, like, no matter how many fruits and vegetables you eat, you're never going to be able to get all the essential vitamins and minerals that you need, right? So we have to supplement. I don't know that there's been any clear research that says yes, that's true, right? Like even if you're eating really healthy and you eat lots of fruits and vegetables and you eat lots of whole foods, you're still going to fall short. Um, that idea is coming from the fact that our food sources have changed so much, and how our food is grown has changed so much that it's not always as rich in the vitamins and minerals that it once was. So that the supplement market, I guess, is saying like we have to be mindful of where our food is grown, how it's grown, because that's going to affect how many vitamins and minerals are actually in it. And so I think that comment kind of translates to the probiotic market as well, right? Like, so how
True.
much can we get all the probiotics that we need from the foods that we eat? I think if they're a regular part of our diet, I think if we find that foods that are rich in good bacteria are a regular part of our diet, I think we can feel pretty good about getting that. And I think if you're going to supplement with a probiotic, you just want to make sure that it's a probiotic that has been researched and has good integrity, so that that you're actually getting something for your investment.
No, I
Mhm.
get it. I get it.
Mm.
That makes sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. So, this was something that I learned recently. Just wanting to know your thoughts on this. What is it? Is it fecal microbiome transplant? Tune in next week to hear Dr. Nicole's opinion on fecal transplants and natural antidepressants.